Peace, everyone. How y'all doing? Welcome to Foundational Israelite Black American YouTube channel, hosted by Israel Doctrine, who claims to be a foundational Israelite Black American. Yes, we do listen to the news here. We do deal with it, not more than leading correspondent Dollar Skills. So we're going to call him up and we're going to talk about this Donald Trump declaring April the 2nd, Independence Day. So we're going to have Dollar on the line soon. We're going to have him speak on the matter. Dollar, peace.
Hello?
Peace, how you doing?
I'm good. How's it going down, brother?
It's good. Trying to speak on today's topic, Donald Trump declaring April the 2nd, 2025, Liberation Day.
Yeah, well, first, I want to just recap, because I think some things have changed. The last show we did, for the people listening, was Donald Trump's FBI Director Cash App Patel was confirmed, and the main topic was declassification. That show you guys can search in the Israel Doctrine channel. Donald Trump, FBI Director Cash App Patel confirmed. We spoke a lot about declassification, and the reason I'm starting this show, which is obviously April 2nd, Liberation Day for America. I'm going to get into why, but I'm bringing up the previous show because people might want to go back and kind of catch up, because some of the things that I'm going to be speaking about is covered in previous shows, mainly that some things changed since the last show. The last show, I instructed everybody that the declassification as it relates to MLK, JFK, and RFK would have been released 40 days from back then by Anna Paulina Luna, which is the congressional, she's a congresswoman for the 13th Congressional District of Florida. That changed. What has happened since the last show is the JFK files were released. They slowed down releasing everything, I think because they didn't want too much information to overwhelm the people. So the MLK files and the RFK files are still coming, but the JFK files have been released. Now, to get into what's going on with April the 2nd, I thought it would be good to do a show about this because it kind of lines up. Everybody that watches the platform knows Brother Carl, Israel Doctrine, is dropping a documentary or a docu-series on what happened to that boy on April the 1st. And by coincidence, some big things are going to be happening here on April the 2nd. And this is based on a post that Donald Trump put up on his Truth Social website a couple days ago. So I'm going to read it, and then we'll get into what this is all about. So this is Trump's post, and he basically posted an announcement. It says, President Donald J. Trump announced today that the United States of America will be putting what is known as secondary tariffs on the country of Venezuela for numerous reasons, including the fact that Venezuela has purposefully and deceitfully sent the United States undercover tens of thousands of high-level and other criminals, many of whom are murderers and people of a very violent nature. Among the gangs they sent to the United States is Tren de Aragua, which has been given the designation of a foreign terrorist organization. We are in the process of returning them to Venezuela. It is a big task. In addition, Venezuela has been very hostile to the United States and the freedoms which we espouse. Therefore, any country that purchases oil, this is the key, and or gas from Venezuela will be forced to pay a tariff of 25% to the United States on any trade they do with our country. All documentation will be signed and registered, And the tariff will take place on April the 2nd, 2025, which is Liberation Day in America. Please let this notification serve to represent the Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, and all other law enforcement agencies within our country have been so notified. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So basically, he's calling April the 2nd the beginning of tariffs, which is something that people got to do a little bit of research on. But April the 2nd is the day that Trump's tariffs are going to turn on various countries. Now, to understand the way that the United States funds its government, it funds its government through taxation. So obviously, everybody who pays their taxes know that that tax money is how the U.S. funds the government, and that comes from internal revenue. So basically, all of the citizens of the United States that own businesses and work 9-to-5s, et cetera, they pay taxes. That tax money is used to fund the United States government through the IRS. What Trump is doing is he's doing tariffs. Now, what a tariff is where other countries that want to do business with the United States pay the tax externally as opposed to taxing the citizens. So there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation about Trump trying to only create tax cuts for the billionaires. No, Trump is trying to get rid of the income tax as a whole for all citizens of the United States, meaning you will no longer have to pay an income tax. That's not going to happen right away, but it begins on April the 2nd because to understand what I was explaining, the government is funded by the internal revenue or the taxpayers. On April 2nd, Trump is going to start putting tariffs on various nations that do business with us. He did it in his first administration on China, and he brought in about $200 billion in revenue by charging them a tax to sell their products here. Now in this administration, he's doing it on various countries, Canada, Mexico, Venezuela, countries who do business with Venezuela, China. So now the United States government is going to start liberating itself and bringing in money from outside or external revenue to fund a much smaller government. That's the reason why Trump is also, if everybody's been watching the news trends, firing people. He's shrinking the size of government. So the first thing that he's doing is he's making the overhead to fund the government a lot cheaper by getting rid of waste and fraud with Elon Musk in the Department of Government Efficiency. Right? So what he's doing first is making the overhead to fund the government cheaper. Then on April the 2nd, the tariffs kick in, which is going to start bringing revenue into the United States from external sources. That's going to fund the smaller government, and ultimately he wants to get rid of the IRS and get rid of the income tax and have the external money paid for funding the government. No longer will we have to work 9-to-5s and labor and pay an income tax on our labor. The people who want to do business with us will do that. So that gives you a background on why he's saying April 2nd begins Liberation Day, because the United States for a very long time has been being robbed by foreign interests. And I'm going to explain this and tie some of the D-class, because the other thing that happened, which why I referenced the previous show, Donald Trump, because we spoke about Crossfire Hurricane, which was a declassification of a scandal. This is probably going to be the biggest scandal in the history of the United States of America as it relates to what they did as a whole. But Trump, and I'm reading an article from March 25th, which was 3 days ago. Trump orders the FBI to declassify documents from Crossfire Hurricane Russia investigation. So we spoke about this, that D-class, or the declassification of documentation, starting with JFK, leading all the way up to the 2020 election, is going to bring the House down. This is not business as usual in politics as we know it. This is unprecedented. So basically, I'm going to just read a brief article from 3 days ago. It says, President Trump signed an executive order Tuesday directing the FBI to immediately declassify files concerning the Crossfire hurricane investigation, the agency probe launched in 2016 that sought information on whether Trump campaign members colluded with Russia during that presidential race. So, like I said, we spoke about this, which is that when Donald Trump won the election in 2016, Operation Crossfire Hurricane was initiated against him by the previous administration, which included Hillary Clinton, who was running for president at that time, Barack Obama, who was president, Susan Rice, the national security advisor. They basically had an investigation opened up on Donald Trump that basically allowed them to put a bug or tap the Trump Towers and the White House. All of the information of what they did has been declassified or ordered to be declassified and released to the American public. It's going to expose that the United States government was overthrown in 2020 by the Democrats and with the help of some Republicans. And it's going to show that back in 2016, they put an illegal wiretap in the White House and in the Trump Towers, alleging that he was colluding with Russia, which was all found to be false in the first impeachment of Donald Trump. They tried to impeach him for that. They put together a phony dossier that claimed that he was in a Russian hotel doing unsavory things with underage teenagers, and then they tied that to a telephone call he had with the leader of Ukraine that involved investigating Joe Biden and his son, Hunter, for selling U.S. trade secrets and things of that nature. So this has been an ongoing fight. But the reason why I'm bringing all of that up and tying it to the April 2nd Liberation Day is because this is the key. This goes back to JFK. And that involves what some people might have heard in the press, U.S. aid. U.S. aid is how all the foreign countries receive aid from the United States. It was set up by John F. Kennedy and his administration, and it has been being used as a slush fund to send money overseas and launder the money back into various politicians and political figures' pockets. So I'll give an example for people to kind of, back in the days in Living Color. In Living Color had a skit with Sally Struthers with the Ethiopian children. It was making a parody that the funds that are supposed to go to the children of Ethiopia wasn't going to Ethiopia, it was going to Sally. So that's what has actually been going on in real life. Ever since the 1960s, this fund that JFK set up, and mind you, they killed JFK. So they killed JFK and they took control of this fund, and they've been using it to funnel money for various charitable missions all over the world. But the problem is only a small percentage of the money for all of these different things is making it to the actual charity. Instead, the money is being funneled through different companies and sent back to political figures in the United States and lining their pockets with billions, if not trillions of dollars, which all comes from the taxpayers. So remember what I said in the beginning, the taxpayers fund the government. So all of the taxpayers that fund the government in the House and the senators, they have the power of the purse over where that money goes. All of these situations and systems have been set up since the 1960s, in the very least. It has been going on before then, but they're starting with JFK. JFK into RFK into MLK is going to create a narrative and show what they did in the 2020 election, which is pivotal because one of the biggest things that I caught that came out in the actual releasing of the JFK files is something that I want everybody to research. It's going to line up what they did in 2020 here as it related to the COVID. And what I want y'all to look up is Operation Mongoose. This is some of the stuff that came out in the declassification of the murder of RFK and who was involved, whether or not there was one or two shooters and a whole bunch. It was 80,000 pages of documents that was released. So people are still sifting through this stuff and finding different new angles and things that wasn't already released in former classifications. Obviously, they did a JFK movie, so there were certain things that were known, but now everything has been released. Unredacted, by the way. They haven't put any black lines through any of the documentation that was released. This is a full unredacted release of the JFK files, over 80,000 documents. Now, back to my thing, I'll give you guys a little background. Operation Mongoose was designed to do what the Bay of Pigs invasion failed to do: remove the communist Castro regime from power in Cuba. So Operation Mongoose, when you research it, it involved them doing a bunch of things. But you know what? One thing that they did that lines up with 2020, they used biological warfare or bioweapons. So what's going to be what's about to happen is that it's going to show that the coronavirus that leaked out of that lab was a CIA operation to overthrow the president of the United States, the same way they did with John F. Kennedy. Same players or modern players that was doing what they did to overthrow the United States government back with JFK, did the same thing with Donald Trump, leading all the way to the 2 assassination attempts. They tried to actually assassinate him like they did JFK. But the key is, in the JFK files, it shows that they used Operation Mongoose, which was a bunch of moves to overthrow government. Now, anybody that is from here in the United States knows that our country has been in the business, sadly, of overthrowing governments all over the world. So when you look at Libya with Fidel Castro, we have mastered the art of infiltrating countries and manipulating their people in politics and overthrowing governments. This has been going on since as far back as the 1960s. Before that, but just to keep everything relative, the JFK files sets the tone because it shows how the federal agencies and all of the government operated to overthrow the government here in the United States by assassinating JFK. And then seizing the funds that's in the U.S. aid, which Elon Musk, when he came in Trump's administration, he's been auditing every federal agency. The USAID was audited, people are being fired, government contracts are being ripped up, and we are moving towards a new world order. And it's supposed to begin or start on April 2nd. Because April 2nd begins the actual tariffs or countries having to pay the U.S. to do business with us, and as opposed to everything in reverse. They've been laundering our money, and foreign countries have been benefiting from the United States. Canada, some of our allies, NATO, all of them have been benefiting from all of our taxpayer dollars. If you were a U.S. citizen, you have a taxpayer or a straw man that pays taxes, and all of that money all throughout our lives has been being funneled to benefit foreign countries and even create things to kill us. Because when you look at the release of the COVID and then the bioweapon, I'm calling it a biological weapon. The vaccine was a biological weapon. I can say this personally because I have relatives that had side effects from that vaccine. One of them died of a massive heart attack. The other one had Bell's palsy. So if you're somebody that got that vaccine and you have Bell's palsy, which is basically a blood clot on your brain, or you have relatives that died of heart attacks suddenly, that's because of the biological weapon known as the actual vaccine. All of that stuff is in the D class that's coming out here. It's going to bring the house down. It's going to shock the world because it's going to show that the Democratic Party, along with some Republicans, conspired not only to overthrow Trump's presidency all from 2016 to 2020, but they released a biological weapon that affected just about everybody in the globe. They followed it up with another biological weapon, which was the shot and it killed people all over the globe, and all so that they could steal the U.S. presidential election. And when I say that, how did they do that? Because the COVID allowed every state to change their laws and not have mail-in voting. So what everybody has to understand is called election day, right? Well, the election of 2020 was election weeks because something was going on that never happened in history, which is that election day, because of the COVID, allowed for people to do mail-in and not in person, and they were able to flood the system with mail-in ballots and overthrow Trump actually winning the 2020 election, as well as hack the computers. We spoke about that in the other show, but I'm bringing the people up to speed. The 2020 election was stolen. That's why Trump never said that he concedes that election, because he has all of, now that he's back in the White House, he definitely has all the power with the declassification to show the American people transparency of everything that's been going on. All the way back to 2016 with Crossfire Hurricane, how they bugged the White House and the Trump Towers and try to line him up with Russia, and then how they used the COVID to set up the election, and then how they used January 6th with federal confidential human sources from the CIA and the FBI to infiltrate those peaceful protests, turn them into riots, and try to hit him in reverse with the Insurrection Act, when it was them that had the power to protect the Capitol, the DC mayor, and the Speaker of the House. So Trump has all of the information and documentation to prove his case. He has all of the executive powers now that the people voted him back into office. He's trying to fix the economy by flipping the tables around on the rest of the world and say, hey, you guys are all benefiting from selling your products in the U.S. We're going to start taxing you so that we can take the tax burden off of our citizens through income tax, and then free the people, or liberate the people in the very least, because I have my own take on liberation and freedom. Is two different things, but liberation in the very least from the tyranny of what has been going on for as far back as the 1960s and before that. But 1960 was when they really did it, because when they killed JFK and they set up this U.S. aid, they've been funneling money through so-called charitable organizations that are supposed to have missions to help people all around the world, but it's benefiting people's pockets here. And while all of the general population has been suffering with the inflation caused by all of this.
Ciao, USA.
All right, so this is not a game. This is real. Arrests are coming. They are going to be arresting people. And you see what's going on right now. I ain't going to say too much, because the documentary, I know it involves you having different interviews. I did an interview with you. You did some other interviews. It's a docu-series. The documentary to me is like an every year thing. Like, until they bring justice with the boy, the documentary really been going on for 8 years as a docu-series, because the documentary is just Brother Carl and all of the people who was involved's lives being put before all of you people back and forth on the internet for 8 years. The documentary been done. So all the arguments about Carl said he was going, the documentary is just the day-to-day, because they haven't answered the question and brought justice to that. So yeah, all right, on April the 1st, Brother Carl's doing the docu-series, but until they bring the justice, look for a documentary every year, or really every day, because it's a rolling documentary. All these things are relative.
Or it can be stated it's a living documentary.
Yeah, the body politics is alive. So it's like a living trust, I'll call it, with the trust law. You can't, until when I look at the state of hip hop, right, and I see that guys like Hassan Campbell are still on this internet, and then I look at what's going on with the informant culture and everything that's been going on. This every single day is a living documentary about the testament of what happened to that boy, because all of these people are caught 100%, and everything that's moving in the politics is aligning everything for us to come out right, no matter what they do, because they didn't bring the correction on that. I don't care what nobody tells me. When I'm seeing what's going on in hip hop right now with that Big U, Whack 100, Adam 22, the jig is up. Everybody, y'all are trying to slowly bring us into the fold that yes, these guys are informants and yes, they're working with the federal government, but it's all corruption. When you reach out past the internet like they did with strategic lawsuits against public participation and things of that nature, misuse the public trust and all of that, and then still not bring the justice. Oh, this is an ongoing thing. It's going to keep going on, maybe to the end of time until they do the correction. Because if they declassifying stuff from 1960 in 2025, you're talking about, let's say 50, 60 years it took for the federal government. There will maybe in the future be a day of declassification that's going to expose everything that they're doing now. But at the same time, I think it's being exposed now because when you understand what Trump is doing and what USAID is and what the JFK files are showing that the federal agencies has been doing, then it pretty much is a no-brainer what's been going on in the YouTube streets with all of these COINTELPRO dudes and what they've been doing on this internet. So the documentary is an ongoing thing, and I'm gonna say this much I know: the documentary doesn't even get into all of that yet. Other than the fact that we're talking about it right now, the documentary for what happened to that boy is an ongoing thing. In my mind, the final documentary is something so intricate because when you look at what's going on right now in our politics with Trump and what's been going on around the globe and how these different charities have been doing what they're doing, knowing what all of these charities are, non-governmental organizations, and how they were receiving grant money from a lot of those funds that Elon Musk is auditing right now, it's going to tie all this stuff together. And there's no way that anybody's getting out of it because of the fact that I believe on this side we got the truth. So we don't really even got to do much posturing or anything. We just got to just stay with the facts that dude came out on this internet, said he took a photo to kill a person that was allegedly being molested or statutory raped or whatever, which way. And the Associated Press was breached when they came out telling two different stories, and then all of that would be good because freedom of speech rights and you could lie and you have a right to choose death and all of that. But then when people started to get involved and try to solve that and they reached out past the internet and then did all of that, what they did, then that's it. They sealed their fate. They should have just left the YouTube banter because then they would have been able to use certain defenses that they're trying to use. That's not the case. The case is they reached out past the internet, put people's names in false court claims and activated the police state and lied to YouTube and did all of this stuff. And then dude is still sitting up on the internet poking his chest out talking about he's not the informant but Wax the informant. These dudes are all working, but at the end of the day, they about to get their whole situation dealt with because the Most High is working. It ain't what I'm saying. It's just the facts of what's happening in nature. Look at what's going on. Look at what we talking about. April 2nd starts Liberation Day, and I ain't going to be too long-winded. I'm going to close out like this. My brother Cole on this platform told everybody that the Bible is the best tool for our liberation, and I seconded that. I said, you're right about that. Now, all of the people who deal with comedic science and maybe atheists or whatever, they better start looking back at that Bible again because everything that Trump is doing is biblical. He had them sign the Abraham Accords where he's trying to bring peace between the Abrahamic Brotherhood, i.e. Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, and Israel, where the deep state or the Democrats and the few Republicans, they want war. They want to try to keep everything in the land of Israel with Palestine and all of this argument. Trump just wants peace. He wants peace in Ukraine. He wants to end the endless wars. because that's what they've been doing, getting us in wars that carry on for 20, 30 years, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of genocide and death in all of these foreign lands, all based on that U.S. aid and these political parties. And Trump is here to clean it all up, and he's got a military and a civilian alliance to do it because the people voted him into office. He's a duly elected president. So sad to say, all the Democrats that's licking their wounds and making all these fake narratives, you guys are the minority now. The people decided, even if a small majority voted for Trump, a majority of the people voted for Trump. They mandated him to clean up the government, to close the borders, to get all of this stuff in order. And if you're on the other side, you're just in an echo chamber talking to yourselves, because there's nothing you can do about this. The people have spoken. The people have spoken against the transgender agenda with the children. They spoke against the P. They don't want this stuff. It's just a small minority of people trying to enforce their will on everybody. And when they did that, they got the resistance, and here we are. And we told them, as it related to the what happened to the boy movement, that playing around with that P inside of this LGBTQ was going to be the end of them, and we're not wrong. Because you can't play around with this stuff. And then you're trying to charge people and make up narratives about them, chase behind them, come up with false stories just so you can try to discredit them because they know that they saw the little alien y'all was hiding. Y'all was trying to hide the alien. We saw it. So that's it, man. Like I said, April 2nd is supposed to begin. Now, let me say this, too, because some people might try to jump out quick and be like, April 2nd does not mean the U.S. economy is not going to go through a little bit of turbulence before everything that Trump is doing kicks on. It just begins where the United States government will begin to receive intake or external revenue from countries that are doing business with us that is going to, and I'll give like the end game on this, that's going to lead into a bill that's going to be signed on the House and Senate floor. And then Trump's true economy is going to activate. And they don't want to see that because they want to keep us paying the taxes. The foreigners definitely don't want to see them have to pay to do business here. So this is a work in progress. We are currently at war with various countries. It's not, World War III hasn't fully been declared, but we're right on the precipice of World War III because they do not want to see the liberation of the people of this country. And that lines right up with the liberation of the Israelites. Because they want to keep everybody in bondage and they want to keep everybody under the system the way it has been. People don't generally like change. I don't even like change too much, so I get it. But things have got to change on this internet, in this country, in our households. Things have got to change. The mindset of the people, all of this mess, all the Democrats and people who are Democrats, come away from your captive. Y'all look like y'all got Stockholm syndrome. They stole the election from y'all. They took Joe out. Joe was who y'all primaried and voted for. They gave you Kamala and they lost. They lost. If you stick with that party that also released a biological weapon and had y'all all get an enforced vaccination and catch Bell's palsy, they knew exactly what they were doing to try to overthrow the United States government, and they technically did because Trump led them in 2020. He let them overthrow the U.S. government so that the people could see that these people are wicked to the core. They don't care nothing about the country. They only want to see chaos and destruction. And this is what we're dealing with. We are at war. They're trying to, I'll say this last thing and then I'll close out. The show that we did prior, I said that this is all going to expose that people within the U.S. government were secretly selling uranium on the black market to have here hit with a nuclear weapon or to use a nuclear weapon as a false flag to bring us into World War III. Because they want to overthrow this country's constitution and get rid of it once and for all. And no, they didn't care about death because death is a casualty of war. So a lot of you same people out here still pushing and promoting and fighting for these frats and these parties, they'll kill y'all. They don't care about y'all. My proof is in the pudding is that they forced the vaccine on many of y'all, and you all know how you felt when you got the vaccine. You know you felt it wasn't right. You know you watched your relatives have heart conditions and Bell's palsy and all of these different things. Wake up. There's still time for people to change. So all of the people who's adversarial to us, I'm going to say it like this. Y'all better get on the right side of history. We're not on the wrong side of history. If you're in opposition to us, in my humble opinion, you're on the wrong side of history. Find a way to extend the olive branch, because what's coming down the pipe is going to be what it is. And that's it, man.
After Bam got out of the hospital to figure out what really happened, and he gave me the picture of a light-skinned Puerto Rican little boy that looked just like me after Bam got out of the hospital to figure out what really happened, and he gave me the picture of a light-skinned Puerto Rican little boy that looked just like me as a kid. And he gave me that picture because I was going to be the one who killed that boy for Africa Bambaataa.
All right, y'all, that's the show. Hit the notification if you want to know more about upcoming shows. Peace. We're out.
Peace.
Throughout history, several historical groups and civilizations have been documented as having connections to ancient Israelite heritage while being of African descent. Here are some notable examples. The Beta Israel, Ethiopian Jews, a Jewish community that lived in Ethiopia for centuries. The Lemba people of southern Africa, who maintain traditions and practices similar to Jewish customs. Various communities in West Africa that have maintained traditions and practices that scholars have linked to ancient Israelite customs. It's important to note that this topic involves complex historical, genetic, and cultural evidence that continues to be studied by scholars and researchers.